We're joined right now by entertainment journalist Caroline Frost to talk about the incredibly sad death of Liam Payne, the former One Direction singer, at the age of 31. Caroline, we've had an announcement that Simon Cowell, of course, who famously formed the boy band One Direction at X Factor auditions, that they've made the last-minute decision to cancel Britain's Got Talent auditions this morning in the light of the death. But tell us the latest. What do we know? Because it was a sad death in Buenos Aires at a hotel in Buenos Aires in Argentina. But are there any new developments today?
Well, yes, as you say, we got the news last night of Liam Payne's tragic death with a fall from a balcony from a third-floor room in a hotel in Buenos Aires, in the capital of Argentina. This morning, we've had the release of a reported alarm call from somebody at the reception, one of the staff members, alerting security services to the fact that there was a very troubled man behaving erratically, these are their words, in his hotel room, and that they were concerned for both him and other members of the public and staff. And they did actually mention the word, we're worried because he has a balcony. So clearly there was alarm within the hotel before this tragic event. And then onlookers at the scene have reported saying, it's horrible words, isn't it? They heard a thud. So that's as far as anybody has got. There was no one else in that room. I guess the next few hours and days will shed perhaps a bit more light. But at the moment, we're hearing huge amounts of tributes around the world. Great upset. This is a young man who had 33 million followers on Twitter. So that's the scale of his following. Yeah.
I think for those who aren't big, I'm going to guess that my talk audience are not huge, big One Direction fans. I've actually seen them. I've got a teenage daughter over the years, gone to various,
You've talked about
summertime balls and things like that, which have involved. They're fantastic. They were a fantastic band. Hugely talented, great singers, great performers. I love happy pop music, and I'm not ashamed to say it. But the awful truth is that a lot of these young people who get involved in this world, and he first went on X Factor at the age of 14. He's been famous and rich and adored since, he was a child. We know that this world is not a kind world. It's very high pressure. You're away from your family, away from your friends. Everyone wants a piece of you. Everyone telling you how wonderful you are, but you're working, round the clock. And he has talked openly about his struggles with mental health, his struggles with alcohol, his struggle with drugs. Is there enough support in this world for these young people who seemingly have it all, but actually are struggling behind the scenes?
Well, there has been recent speculation about what goes on behind the scenes of these incredibly popular, but as you say, juggernaut of talent, sort of a machine, and what does go on behind the scenes. So I think that anybody starting a show in this day and age would be the beneficiary of those changes. Unfortunately, One Direction came along at the end of those colossal talent shows in all their popularity and influence a decade ago. And I think there are three chapters that you've already alighted on, which is that, yes, he was a total youngster. We first saw him age 14. He joined One Direction age 16. These are young, hormonal, important, crucial years in people's development. Then to go from all to that, and of course propelled to national scrutiny and attention, then to be on the road within that hotel. Yes, very glamorous from the outside, clamouring for adulation from the inside, all scrutiny, all pressure, tirelessness. He actually gave interviews where he forgot that he'd been to Australia and Manila because he probably didn't even set foot beyond his limousine.
Yeah, and that's it. It looks so good on the surface, but we've seen again and again, whether it's a child star from Hollywood, whether it's pop stars, and Philip Ingram mentioned earlier, also footballers, put into this world, on this track, they're multi-millionaires, at the age of 19, for goodness sake. Again and again, we just hear these stories that are actually deeply unhappy, battles with drink and drugs because of mental health problems. Say Robbie Williams has been really open about that, many others. And we don't know, of course, whether this was suicide, whether it was deliberate, whether it was an accident. We just don't know. And obviously that sort of speculation is not helpful at this time. But is there enough support for people in this world? From word go and even, once they talk about it, is there enough support when you've got so many people sort of clamouring for you to be okay and you have to pretend to be okay every day?
Oh, because the money machine is immense.
Yeah.
I guess the question you would have to ask is whose responsibility that is. Of course, everyone deserves support. And we should say, of course, lots of people suffer tragic incidents instance, and these just get documented and get given an awful lot of attention. But you're right. I mean, the casualty rate is disproportionate in this particular industry, whether it be drugs, whether it be accidents. I mean, for years we've seen the glamour of the rock and roll lifestyle, but we only need to kind of look at the members of the 27 Club, you know, people who died at the age of 27, of which Amy Winehouse is just one of those people. It's clearly something goes on. There is a Faustian pact being signed, and there are so many casualties by the roadside of this particular trajectory that you have to wonder what does go on. I was actually asking some fellow journalists today, what's the first switch? When does it switch from being an innocent young man who is fated and adored? When does it switch to being somebody whose fate suddenly becomes more precarious than just your average person in the street?
And people being sort of haunted almost. I wonder though, and again, we've seen this with suicides from Love Island and all these other problems we've seen with pop stars. I wonder actually the flick is switched the switch is flicked long before they even get fame. The urge to seek fame itself, the urge to be a pop star, to be a film star, that actually that is often where the trouble lies. And actually people become famous because they're trying to fill something in their own lives, this sort of hole in their soul, and actually it isn't filled, because that's not how human beings work.
I think there's a difference between people who can generate their own music, their own films. I mean, look at somebody like Taylor Swift. I have no worries for Taylor Swift. I know she's capable of sitting in a room by herself and creating music. Somebody who can produce something by themselves will always have a pathway. It's these other people who become very famous, very adulated, revered and followed, and there is that hole because they aren't creating content, they're dependent on it, and there is a great emptiness at the whole of that, which no amount of money or success across the world.
Exactly. It's just incredibly sad. I mean, you say, as a mum, the idea that, you know, a young lad at the age of 31, again, a father himself of a 7-year-old with Cheryl Cole as well, that's the most important person we should be thinking about today, I think. Caroline Frost, really appreciate you joining us, entertainment journalist there, Caroline Frost.